I've often said that I wanted to be in the mafia. It's very true. But I think that I should have something else besides that, but I really kind of don't. And I said, well, who's going to fill up the shelf where the water bottles used to be? And they said, no one. And it hit me right in the back of the head and it came out my mouth, I will. Next thing I knew, in pretty record time, I was flying that airplane. Please stay away from Portland. I'm trying to give Portland to Washington if anybody wants to vote for that. So many things would break so often, and so many things I would try were such bad ideas. But it was like, Travis, your idea just didn't work. That's fine. That didn't work, but let's go on to the next idea. I met with Tesla. They just brought Elon, and they were like, would you put a HydroFlask in every Tesla? I was like, I don't think you guys are going to take off. It doesn't really seem like a good idea.
This guest is incredibly multifaceted. He's a business broker, airline pilot, professional speaker, started his own advising group, and last but certainly not least, invented the HydroFlask. Please welcome Travis Rosbach to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again too. I know we tried to do this one other time and then ran into some technical difficulties, so I'm glad we got the chance to sit back down and do it again.
This will be just as good, if not better.
We got to make it better. We always got to level up one more from the last.
I'm totally down for that.
And actually, like, while I was trying to come up with questions, like I have a couple of the same questions as last time, but I was like, I want to bring something new to the table. And I sort of found out that any topic I could name, you could jump right in, including gangster rap. Just as a quick, like, playful intro to the podcast, who are some of your favorite rappers of all time? Not even necessarily like the top or the best, just who do you like to listen to?
I would say Eazy-E is number one favorite all time. I think Eazy was, to me, he was like the grandfather of gangster rap. And I know that Dre was there with him, and Ice Cube was there with him, and then later on other people came around before they took him out. But I would say Eazy-E, hands down, far and away. I still really, it's interesting because as I've gotten older, when I listen to it, I'm like, well, that's quite naughty. Like, we do not talk like that, Eric. But at the same time, just a really talented musician and lyrical gangster. And I love Eazy-E's, Easy Does It album, really. The others were okay, but he was starting to kind of stray. I really would be interested, if he was still alive, what he would be coming out with today. But back in the day, Ice-T, around the Power days, Nas, not Lil Nas X, not the satanic guy, but the OG Nas, the NWA. Yes, I used to listen to 2 Live Crew a bit, and that was always quite cheeky. Always good for a laugh, I guess. But yeah, I'd say, and then Ice Cube. I really liked Ice Cube's older stuff. America's Most Wanted and Lethal Injection was maybe kind of where I stopped kind of listening to it as much. Dre in the early days, I think The Chronic was great, but after that, he kind of became a little too tied in with organizations, and his, everything changed at that point. And I don't respect that. I don't, like Eminem, back in the early days before he kind of started glitching out on camera and stuff. I liked Marshall. And I'm still very much a gangster rap fan. West Coast, I should say. I do like a little bit of Biggie, a little bit of Tupac, although Tupac was very much like, he was very California, LA, like, which I know that's what West Coast is, but Tupac was, I like Tupac. There's some good Tupac stuff that I still listen to, still on my playlists.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm glad that you're ready to jump into really anything.
Yeah, you name it, I'm ready.
Yeah. And so really like I want to get into more of the like entrepreneurial HydroFlask side. I mean, when you were a kid growing up, what did you think you would be doing? Because I don't think you ever imagined, you know, coming up with like a metal water bottle that's gonna sell all over the world. So what other like dreams did you have as a kid growing up?
I've often said that I wanted to be in the mafia, and I think, I mean, it's very true, but I think that I should have something else besides that, but I really kind of don't. I even at 45, I still don't really know what I want to do at 46. It's like I just want to live my life to the fullest and the most abundant that I can. And that started very early. I didn't appreciate the school system trying to force me into one vocation. I didn't appreciate them trying to tell me I had to go to college and I had to do one thing and only do that one thing. I watched my grandpa do one thing his whole life. And then I saw what happened after he retired and the whole retirement process. And I was like, damn, that's just not worth it. That's horrible. Like that how boring to get up and know exactly what you're doing 7 days a week for the rest of your life. And then he retired and I watched that whole process, and he got like this like cheap gold fake gold watch, and he got like a jacket and some stock in the company, and that was about it. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I know that. And then when I met my dad when I was 14, I was like, I'm going to go down to the Virgin Islands and I'm going to go scuba diving, maybe own the dive shop someday, and something to do with business. But I had no idea that it would be inventing a water bottle. I had no clue.
Yeah, and I mean, what when you try to like start a business, you know, I'm sure you have plenty of experience, but when you did you have sort of one moment where you like thought of the Hydro Flask water bottle and you had like an aha moment that you thought it was going to be a great idea?
I kind of did, and yet also I kind of did not. There was a point at which I had gone into a sporting goods store inside in Honolulu, and I wanted to buy a reusable water bottle. And at that time, they were made out of plastic.
Yeah.
And I walked in and asked, and they said, no, we don't have them. And this new stuff called BPA, we're not sure what it is, but as a preliminary, precautionary measure, they pulled them all from the shelves. And I said, well, who's going to fill up the shelf? And there's this huge wall that was where the water bottles used to be. And they said, no one, there was nobody else, doing water bottles. And it hit me right in the back of the head, which is called a cerebellum. And it came out my mouth. I will do that. I will fill up this wall. And the guy he laughed at me, but I saw myself in the future talking about this highly successful water bottle company. And I was like, it kind of like shook me because I had a very real vision of it being very successful. And yet I knew nothing about water bottles. And so from that point forward, it was almost like the odds were stacking in my favor. And the more I tried not to do water bottles, because I had a very successful sign and screen printing agency, and I wasn't looking to do anything else. I was trying to be content. I was trying to just be serious and focus on one thing, which I'm not usually great at, but I was trying my damnedest to just be focused, be here, just this. And the more I would try, the more the water bottle idea would just hit me in the head, or it would just show up on my desk, or somebody would say something. And it was like, eventually, I bought some of the competitors' aluminum bottles and stainless steel single wall bottles, and they sucked. And I was like, if this is the best there is, then this is not good. And somebody needs to make something better. What about me? And so I did have that one cerebellum hit, but then after that, everything just kind of started to stack up in my favor.
Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out the Publish Press. The Published Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Published Press comes out 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with everything going on with your favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Published Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Published Press, and get all the info you need on the industry.
And had you ever, that sort of like repeated process of like having it brought up, or like this vision that you talked about of like seeing you have this successful company, had you had that in the past with maybe the sign printing business or anything else, or was that like the first time you had experienced that?
That's a great question. Actually, I had it before when I was a boat captain. I was on a yacht and I quit. Just all of a sudden, one afternoon, I got offered this huge position and cash and everything I'd ever dreamt of. And I said, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I had no safety net. I had nothing else going on. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I walked down the gangplank and I saw a seaplane take off. And again, it hit me in the cerebellum. This was the first time it hit me and it came out my mouth. I'm a pilot. I'm going to do that. I'm going to fly those seaplanes. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then the next day, I was at the grocery store and I just so happened to see this flying magazine. And it was like the lights turned on and I was at the checkout and I couldn't afford my dinner and the magazine both. So I had to put back the hot dogs and just buy the macaroni and cheese and gallon of water in order to afford the magazine. But when I got that magazine in my hands, it was like the holy grail. It was like this text that I just somehow knew my future was somehow in it. And I got it home and I poured through every single word on every single page. And I started calling the flight shops and they all said, no, it's 180 grand. And like, I had no breakfast tomorrow because I didn't get my hot dogs.
You had just given up the hot dogs to get the magazine.
Yeah, they're asking me for 180K. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. And the more it did not work, the more I just kept trying and I kept calling. I got down to the very final flight school in the back of the magazine. And I was like, I have no money. And they go, well, you need to go to college and get loans, student loans, Pell Grants, and whatever the grant language is. I had no idea what that meant, but I was like, what does that mean? Well, they're like, free money. I'm in, done. Let's do that. And so once I found out there was free money to go to college, like, okay, well, that got me up to Oregon, where my great grandma had just died and her house was vacant. So I had a free place to stay. And it was like things just kind of started to stack in my favor. And the more they would stack in my favor, the more conscious I would become of them, the more other ancillary things would start to kind of show up and be like, hey, I can help. What about this? Oh, I know a guy. Oh, if you call her, she can help you do that. And it was like the more I put myself out there and the more I put out that I am a pilot, the more I was a pilot. And then next thing I knew, in pretty record time, even with 9/11 happening, I was flying that same exact airplane that I saw take off from the water. I was flying it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, like, I mean, airline pilot, boat captain are just a couple of them. But looking through your resume, you have so many different like licenses and titles. I mean, like scuba diving, yoga instructor, the list goes on. Where does your desire come from to like get all these licenses and try all these different things?
I think the answer is I don't know, but I do know that I've always wanted to live a life that was very full. I always wanted to kind of live life my way. I wanted to do things my way and I wanted to have fun. I wanted to get paid for something that other people paid good money to do. And I remember I was flying private jets, hanging out with billionaires. And I was like, this billionaire is paying to fly this jet, which is awesome because I get to fly the jet, but I also get to hang out with the billionaire and learn from him. And I get to learn about business. And I get, it's like everything I would do would help me kind of become a better person so that I could level myself up. So I always wanted to do different things that would add to the repertoire, the genre that is Travis. And I always just wanted to have fun, and do things that maybe not a lot of other people were doing or didn't really think that they could do. And then after I got into something, I wanted to do it 100%. There, like, I don't understand 99.99%. Once I'm in, I'm fully engaged, I'm fully immersed. I'm learning the history. I start with the vocabulary. I start with the Idiot's Guide books, the dummies, consulting for dummies is right here. I mean, this is where it all starts. I have flying and gliding and boat captaining and becoming a millionaire, all starting with the vocabulary. And then once I know the vocabulary and I know how the pilots walk and how they dress and where they hang out and how they just carry themselves, well, now I can start to carry myself like a pilot. I can associate with these eagles, kind of metaphorically speaking, and no pun intended. And then I just became a pilot and flew the jets that I always wanted to fly.
Yeah, that's awesome that you really like you recognize that you may not have background or experience in something, and you start at the ground level. You go, like you said, to the vocabulary and sort of up from there. You don't try to just like jump in with no background or experience. And I think that's a really like important skill to have, to not like take for granted how seemingly easy something might be. And now, like, going back a bit more to the HydroFlask side, you have this idea, you start building aluminum water bottles, you start to build up the company. How did you go about marketing this like aluminum water bottle?
Well, we were the first to do the double wall vacuum insulated stainless steel. And so nobody had ever seen ice stay cold or hot stay hot in a bottle that you could kind of everyday carry. We all had kind of distant memory of this old school company called Thermos that was around. My grandfather had this one up on the shelf here. My grandfather had this old, heavy, ugly thermos that stunk and it weighed 800 pounds and there was glass inside of it, and he'd keep his coffee in it when we go fishing or whatever. And it was archaic. And so when that new modern water bottle kind of came out, and there was a couple, one company was doing aluminum and they had BPA in them. Another was doing single wall, and they were doing pretty well with their single wall, especially with the California crowd. But I wanted to have something that we could do at the beach and up on the mountain, and I could still have water. If I go climb a mountain, my water's not frozen. If I go surf, I come back in, my water's not so hot that I can't drink it. And so when we achieved that with HydroFlask, it was actually fairly straightforward marketing. It was hot, cold, liquid. Do you drink liquid? Yeah, you're a candidate. Do you like your water either hot or cold, or at least even the temperature you put it in? Well, then you're a candidate. And so, my initial instinct was to just mass spread it out to the world, but that gets expensive. And so the best piece of advice I had for the marketing for the HydroFlask was somebody told me about an ancillary product. They said, if you can market to your hometown demographics, if you can just market to where you are and then let them spread it for you, you'll be okay. And so I took that approach. I was like, well, what if we just concentrate on Portland, Oregon, before it turned out to be, well, it was still always kind of whack, but before it's as whack as it is now, please stay away from Portland. I'm trying to give Portland to Washington if anybody wants to vote for that. And also if I could keep
Sign my
it in
petition.
Bend, if I could keep it in Bend and keep the locals happy, I knew as long as we had customer service, a lifetime warranty, and we gave them something that I would want, that they would then give it on to others further afield. And that's exactly how it happened.
Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. And super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program.
Do you think, I mean, it seems like it definitely could be, but do you think that sort of like hometown first strategy could work for businesses of like all kinds, or do you think there was something special about HydroFlask specifically that made that strategy work?
I think a little bit of both. I think that because we had patents and patents pending, they were just design patents at that time, but at the same time, the word patent and patent pending kind of kept away the would-be competitors a little bit. And so I think that when we're kind of focusing small, it helped. But then the other thing we started doing was going to a lot of trade shows. And at the trade shows, we picked up sales reps. And I don't want to say I forgot about the sales reps, but I kind of let the sales reps do their thing. And so they started, going out to the East Coast and the Midwest and down South and internationally. We started going international pretty quick. But I always kept that hometown, let's take care of Bend, let's take care of Oregon at the forefront. And I think that staying small, or not, I mean, we didn't really stay small, but we concentrated and focused the efforts of the marketing specifically locally. And I think that can work for some businesses, but it also kind of gives me a little bit of concern, because if you have a good idea and you just keep it, in your basement and nobody really finds out, or you're down at your local quickie mart, like somebody
It's
can
not
knock you out
gonna
pretty quick.
have that like spreadability. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then you get knocked off, and then somebody who has more money, because there's always a company who has a bigger marketing budget. So you're always kind of competing with that. That was always in the back of my mind, is that, yeah, we're dope, but that company's dumb, but they have more money to market than we do. And, yeah.
Yeah. And marketing's really like half the battle. I mean, if there are any, like building up HydroFlask, do you think there are any mistakes you ran into, or like bumps in the road that sort of hindered the progress of the company?
That's a tricky question, because like so many things would break so often, and so many things I would try were such bad ideas in hindsight. But in the heat of the moment, it was like, hey, Travis, your idea just didn't work. You just broke that. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. That didn't work, but let's go on to the next idea. Okay, the next one worked. Great. Now we're in, now we're in the UK. Okay, next idea. Oh, that broke. That was horrible idea, Travis. Why would you come up with that? I don't know. But now we're in Europe. Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So I think that I know that there were a lot of mistakes made. I know I dropped the ball multiple times on different ideas that I was certain would take off, and they didn't. But I don't have any real, for example, for instances, because I kind of didn't, I don't hold that. I don't think about the failure. I just say, well, if that didn't work, what part of it did work? What part of it didn't work? Let's drop what didn't. Let's take what did. Let's move on to the next one with what did, and let's add this to it. And now that we have this new 2.0, let's go do this 2.0 and see how that goes. And 2.0 would work, or it wouldn't. It would have to go on to 8.0. By the time we get to 8.0, it's like, okay, boom, see, told you that would work. Now we're in Cabela's. Oh, okay, cool. We got into Cabela's with 8.0. So, like I don't, I do remember one time that I met with Tesla, and they were brand new. We were out in New York, or they'd been around a while, but they'd gone through all kinds of, they hadn't really come out with the new cars yet. And they just brought Elon, and they said, I met them in New York, and they were like, would you put a hydro flask in every Tesla? I was like, I don't think you guys are going to take off. It doesn't really seem like a good idea. Nobody really has electric vehicles. This big guy, Elon, he's kind of almost kind of creepy, kind of odd. I don't know. We don't have enough bottles. No, thank you. And they're like, we're Tesla. I'm like, yeah, that really doesn't mean anything to anybody. This was 2009, 2010. It was like, I'm not into that, so no. That's something that I really wish that I would have pursued, was just more time with Elon and Tesla. So
yeah, and I mean, at that point, I mean, now that would have been probably one of like the biggest partnerships in the world. I mean, like everywhere you go, almost no matter what city, you see a Tesla driving around somewhere.
Yeah, they'd all be drinking out of the flask.
Yeah. And so, it seems like, you accept that you might have made mistakes, but learn from them and sort of develop and evolve them so that they become like good practices or something that ended up helping the company. So that seems like a great way to sort of keep moving forward, despite failures that you might have had. And, since starting out with the core like HydroFlask bottle, you've sort of branched out into a bunch of different things like tumblers, kitchenware, just like all over the place. Do you see HydroFlask like expanding into even more products, or do you think you're at like a level that you're satisfied with for now?
Well, I sold HydroFlask a number of years back, and I haven't really seen them do anything that wasn't from my original playbook. When I left, I kind of gave them some sketches and some drawings, some ideas, and they've executed those over the years, and they haven't really branched much further outside of the obvious. And so I think that, especially since they were acquired by a massive corporation that has hair dryers and kitchen utensils and things like that, I think that they're pretty well established with the insulated drinkware category, and it works. I mean, it's I don't know exactly what the numbers are today, but it is I can imagine it's at least $1 billion brand. And if it's it's working, why reinvent the wheel? And I can appreciate that. I think that if they were to start doing sleeping bags and tents, it would deter. Plus, I think they also own Osprey, so they can let Osprey do that. Of course, that might have changed. There was something in the news the other day about Osprey and HydroFlask, but I don't really keep up with it much anymore.
Yeah. And, on all the products you have for this, I mean, like you said, $1 billion company, where at first did that, now iconic logo come from, the sort of like figure with all the, I mean, I have my HydroFlask bottle right here. You can maybe see it, just like that guy standing there with all the lines coming out of his head. Where does that idea come from?
Well, so my partner and I started in Oahu originally, and the first samples, they said, hey, we need a name and we need a logo. And I was like, for what? And they're like, well, so that we can screen print and show you that we can screen print. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that does make a lot of good sense. Yeah, this is a brand. Okay. So my brother came up with the name HydroFlask. I hated it. I was like, flask, whiskey, hangovers.
Like, that's never going to take off.
Nobody wants to think about drinking out of a flask under the Burnside Bridge. And sure enough, there we were selling HydroFlask under the Burnside Bridge like hotcakes. But the logo originally was actually, I have it right here. It was a wave.
Yeah.
That was the original one when we were in Oahu. When we got home, when I came back home to Bend, we had enough money at some point where we hired a marketing company. And it was this really stupid, expensive marketing company. And the first thing they said was, you need a new logo. I'm like, okay, what do you have? And they came in and basically they'd gone to 99 designs and they paid $1,500 or whatever it was and got like 500 designs. And at that point I fired them. I was like, nope, if you guys are going to hire out, $1,500 contractor, I'll just hire out the $1,500.
I'll just go straight to them. What do I have you for?
Go straight to the source. I'm not paying you guys a finder's fee. And none of their logos I liked. And I think it was from the ones that I did not like that I kind of came up with an idea that I did like. But at that point, all I could really do is draw it on a piece of paper. And since we had fired the marketing company, we had a little bit of money to spend on a real life graphic design human. And so got really lucky with Alice. She came in as our first really full-time in-house graphic designer. And the first or second day she was in, I was like, hey, I got an idea. What do you think of this picture? And she's like, wow, I love it. Let's change it. I was like, yes, good. Let's do that. So Alice and I started just drawing and coming up and with the logo, and the H guide just kind of took off and stuck.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, so how long did that, sort of process take from original wave design to Alice's redesign of the H guy? Like, how long was that period of time?
Oh gosh, probably about 8 months, which means probably about 15,000 bottles maybe we had made with the old logo. And then when we got the new logo, I was still kind of in the experimental stage for the first couple of years where I kept improving the bottle, and the factory, as we grew, the factory was able to grow. As the factory grew, the more equipment, the better equipment, the more we could kind of experiment with insulation methods and the technologies. How do we insulate the bottle? How does the bottle look? And so for the first couple of years, everything was kind of in flux. It was always like, well, if it doesn't work, we know that they will sell because we had enough of a following, and we were building that sort of cult following that people were buying 3 and 5 and 20 different bottles, over the time that we were changing the designs and everything. So I knew that they would sell, but I also kind of had well, if it doesn't work, or if I don't like it, or if we don't like it, or somebody doesn't like it, we can always change it later. Also mentality. Like the good news is it's going to keep your ice cold. It's going to keep your hot. What's on the outside is kind of an ancillary aspect of it.
Yeah.
And we can dial it and tweak it as we go. And that's kind of what happened up until about 2 years.
I wonder, I mean, I haven't personally seen anything, but I wonder, have you gotten any wind or like seen anything online of people like selling off like old design hydro flasks for like a profit, being like, oh, look at this like original logo hydro flask, anything like that?
I don't know. I haven't really looked. I have a 40-foot shipping container I have a few of them in my yard, and they're full of those old bottles. And so let me know if you know of anybody buying them, because I got some for sale, if so.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone, but honestly, I might be interested. I mean, the Wave logo, from what I can see here, looks awesome. So,
It is.
I'll definitely stay in touch. I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll split it, or we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And now let's say like someone watching this feels like they have a great idea for a company or a business or whatever it is. But they don't have the experience, sort of like you said, you're in that shop and you're like, I will, but I have no clue what I'm doing here. Do you think someone needs like a business degree or a business background to start a successful business?
I think yes and no. I think having business experience is very helpful. I think to go into business with no experience and think that you're going to hit it out of the park is probably unrealistic. But I also do believe that if you don't have any business experience, you can gain that business experience without necessarily having to go to a 4-year degree program or 6-year degree program to get it. I think with the idiots books and with just enough YouTube and enough, asking, nowadays we have these things called mentors, and there's plenty of people to reach out to, and you can either buy them a cup of coffee or give them $500 for an hour and pick their brain and learn everything they have. And I think $500 an hour is a lot cheaper than 4 years and 500,000 or 150,000
Yeah.
for an education. But I also, am very cautious or conscious, and would caution those who just get into business that it can be very expensive, and it can be very overwhelming with hours spent in the trenches learning and doing and building and growing. But again, there's enough courses online these days to pretty much do whatever you want. For $2,000, you can do a course on how to do. I actually am building a course right now on how to build your own product, how to, source a factory, a contract manufacturer, how to bring your own product to life. And so I know it's very much possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely important what you said, because I mean, it seems like every sort of industry or venture like has that story of like, you see someone who's now made it, like a company that's now big, a music artist that's now made it, and every time you talk to them or hear interviews with them, they're like, yeah, it was years before like I got discovered or anything. I was, working hard like in my parents' basement, things like that. All those stories that you keep on hearing, like at some point it doesn't by any means become a constant, but it's not by no means a rare thing. It's very common that you see things like that. And one of those many ventures that you've gone on is to start your own advising group, the Tumalo group. Am I pronouncing that right? How is it?
Actually, we just changed it to just travisrosbach.com, just to keep it
All
simple.
right, travisrosbach.com. What sort of, can you tell us about that? What does the group do? Just anything that, involves travisrosbach.com.
Yeah, basically, I have a team I work with, and I just want to get my content out of my head. I just want to help people in their entrepreneurial endeavors and in their life in general. And so we are building courses for manufacturing. We're going to build an entrepreneurial course. And in the meantime, everything from $500 for consulting all the way up to, I have a $100,000 program where I work with typically high net worth individuals over the span of a year. and a lot of one-on-one time, or we go to their factories and we go through their factory and go through the whole manufacturing process. And so it's what I love. I love doing business. I love finding new businesses and helping businesses grow. I love growing brands, and I enjoy helping people. I enjoy consulting and advising in business as a whole, because I get to learn and I get to kind of practice everything that I have learned. And I really enjoy watching the outcomes. You know, after a year of working together, the business has gone from here to like up there somewhere. It's so satisfying, and it's a lot of fun. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just having fun, still doing business.
Yeah, no, sounds awesome. And is that sort of the project that you're most involved with right now, or that you're like working on currently?
It is, yeah, right now. And there's always offshoots that pop up along the way. You know, people come along as a client, or, you know, some people come in for the $500 1 hour and then they leave, and I've got equity, and we're growing the brand together, and we're off to the races with that, you know, going off to, we can now go into China again. And so we can go see those factories. We're looking at a lot at Mexico and the United States for manufacturing, which is a lot of fun. And so I never know what the day is going to hold. And that's what I love about doing what I'm doing, is that I have no idea what I'm going to do Monday or
Yeah,
Tuesday.
it's the exact opposite of your grandfather who woke up knowing exactly what he's doing every day. You have no clue what you're doing any day.
Yep. Yeah, it's terrifying and exhilarating at the exact same time, and I'd have it no other way.
Yeah. And you know, the last question that I have for you here today, do you ever plan on like retiring by any means, or do you think you'll always be involved with something, working on some project?
I hope that I never retire. I really, really hope that I never get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done with business. I don't want anything to do with anybody, and I don't want anything to do with any business. That I don't think would ever happen. However, I do believe there will be a time where I turn off travisrosbach.com. People can't really find me anymore, and because I'm now completely behind the curtain, and I'm working over here with these businesses doing this stuff, and no more of the public facing. So
Yeah.
that would be my ideal retirement, or my idea of retirement, would to kind of step behind the curtain and and say, as much as I enjoy your podcast, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But
Well,
well,
I'm glad that I got the chance to while you're still doing it.
I
And so,
enjoy it. Yeah.
and I mean, that sounds great. You know, no, like, none of the sort of pressure, like scheduling of going out and doing public facing things, but still doing the part that you love, which is like the more business behind the scenes side. So it seems like that's like sort of the perfect retirement plan for you.
I
But
hope so. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, like I said, those are all the questions I had for you here today. And I know you're not big on social media, so rather than your own social media platforms, just anything that you want to promote or shout out, feel free to do it now.
Well, it's interesting because you're absolutely right. Just yesterday, the director of operations turned on Facebook again, just yesterday. And so I am on LinkedIn. I am now on Facebook. And I think that the Facebook is going to be like a business page, Travis Rosbach or travisrosbach.com. And then also, besides Facebook, typically LinkedIn is kind of a good place to reach out, or info at Travis Rosbach, TravisRosbach.com.
Yeah, well, I'll leave a link to some of those down below, and you know, good luck on any upcoming ventures you have.
I appreciate it. It's good to see you again, Heroek.
Yeah, good to see you.